Russia threatens wide Ukraine offensive as U.S. presses China over war stance. Kyiv. Ukrainian defenders battled on Saturday to incorporate Russian forces alongside several fronts, officials mentioned, because the United States urged China to align itself with the West in opposing the invasion following an ill-tempered G20 assembly. A missile strike on the northeastern city of Kharkiv wounded 3 civilians, its governor said, though Russia's principal attacks seemed centered southeast of there in Luhansk and Donetsk. Those 2 provinces, components of which were held via pro-Russian separatists earlier than the conflict started out in February, incorporate the Jap industrial region of the Donbass. Ukrainian officers pronounced moves in each on Saturday, even as Britain's Ministry of Defense mentioned Moscow was assembling reserve forces from throughout Russia close to Ukraine. Donetsk nearby Governor Pavlo Kirilenko mentioned on the Telegram messaging provider that a Russian missile had struck Druzhkivka, a town at the back of the front line, and said shelling of different populous centers. Luhansk Governor Serhiy Gaidai stated on Telegram that Russian forces have been firing alongside the front line, though a next Ukrainian counterattack had pressured Moscow to halt its offensive. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky said the Russian military had targeted civilians on purpose. It fired exactly on the residential region truly deliberately, purposefully, at ordinary homes and civilian objects, he said in a declaration. Russia, which claimed manipulate over all of Luhansk province closing weekend, denies focused on civilians. Zelensky additionally dismissed numerous of Kyiv's senior envoys abroad, pronouncing it became a part of everyday diplomatic exercise. He said he would rent new ambassadors to Germany, India, the Czech Republic, Norway and Hungary. Zelensky has urged his diplomats to drum up global help and high-end weapons to sluggish Russia's improve. U.S. President Joe Biden signed a weapons package for Ukraine on Friday well worth as much as $400 million, such as 4 additional excessive mobility artillery rocket systems HIMARS. But Ukraine suffered a diplomatic setback on Saturday, while Canada stated it might go back a repaired turbine that Russia's state-controlled Gazprom MCX, GAZP, used to deliver herbal fuel to Germany. Ukraine had argued that a return might violate sanctions on Russia. CHINAU.S. Frictions on Saturday. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, urging the global network to sign up for forces to condemn Russian aggression, told reporters he had raised worries with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi over Beijing's alignment with Moscow. The pair held over 5 hours of talks on the sidelines of the G20 accumulating of overseas ministers on the Indonesian island of Bali. On Friday, Russia's Sergei Lavrov had walked out of a meeting there, denouncing the West for frenzied grievance. The Chinese Overseas Ministry stated, without giving info, that Wang and Blinken had mentioned the Ukraine trouble. It additionally quoted Wang as pronouncing that Sino-American members of the family have been in risk of being further led off target, with many people believing that the U.S. is suffering from an increasingly serious bout of Chinophobia. Shortly before the Russian invasion, Beijing and Moscow introduced a no-limits partnership, despite the fact that U.S. officials have said they have now not seen China prevent U.S.-led sanctions on Russia or provide it with Navy device. Kharkiv's Governor Oleh Syniehubov mentioned on Telegram that, as well as the missile strike, fighters had repulsed Russian assaults near Dementivka, a city located between the city and the border with Russia. Russia's defense ministry said its forces hit 2 bases of foreign mercenaries deployed close to Kharkiv. Ministry spokesperson Igor Konashenkov also said troops had destroyed ammunition depots inside the Mykolaiv, Dnepropetrovsk and Donetsk regions. Russian-backed forces within the territory of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic (DPR) stated 3 people died and 17 have been wounded there in the past 24 hours as Ukrainian forces shelled 10 locations. Alexei Kulemzin, mayor of Donetsk, wrote on Telegram that girls had died as a result of shelling inside the town's Kirovsky district. Could not independently affirm battlefield accounts. Sanctions plea following Friday's testy G20 exchanges. President Vladimir Putin also signaled that the Kremlin changed into in no mood for compromise, announcing sanctions in opposition to Russia risk causing catastrophic power fee rises. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba mentioned on Saturday that sanctions were running, and echoed requires more deliveries of high-precision Western weapons. Russians desperately try to carry the one's sanctions, which proves that they do harm them.